I was finally able to beat all the craziness that is surrounding purchasing yourself a PlayStation 5 at retail. If there's anything I could share with you as far as advice and purchasing tactics, I'd say get on Twitter and follow Matt Swider from Tech Radar and be ready to purchase a bundle. That way your likelihood of scoring a console increases significantly. I know they cost a bit more, but at least you're getting extra accessories for the price that you would pay to a reseller for just the system itself. I know it sounds ridiculous, but that's the way I was able to do it, and it's tough out there because the bots and people, resellers and all kinds of stuff getting these PlayStation 5s is just insane. And I refuse to buy into that, so here we are, and this is why it took me so long to purchase this system. Let's start this whole video off by talking a bit about the specifications of this machine. Since announcement, I've had my eyes on the discs version of the PS5. There's just something about having a physical copy of my games on disc and being able to play the occasional DVD or Blu-ray movie when the time arises. The PS5 has a UHD Blu-ray player in it that takes advantage of the 100 gigabyte disc that now exists. More on the specifications of this system. The CPU is a Zen 8 core AMD Ryzen with 16 threads of processing power at a variable 3.5 gigahertz. The GPU is a custom AMD RDNA 2 clocking in at around 2.23 gigahertz, pushing a total of 10.3 teraflops. I really feel the power that's built into this machine versus that of which is the PlayStation 4 Pro, especially when I'm playing PlayStation 4 games on this machine. There's 16 gigabytes of GDDR6 RAM in this machine, and there's also 825 gigabytes of total storage. That is proprietary, by the way. There's roughly 665 gigabytes of usable storage for players out there. That's kind of a bummer in my opinion, because what if this drive fails? Fortunately though, Sony has given PS5 owners the ability to expand the internal storage through the NVMe expansion slot, which has not been enabled at the time of this video. If you put any type of NVMe expandable storage into the PS5, the PS5 will alert you that you need to remove that NVMe before you can move past the boot up screen. That's kind of a bummer now, but I think it's because of the throughput requirements that drives are just not ready for. I would expect that they do that at some point with a firmware update, so stay tuned. Hopefully you can run your system off of that just in case you have a catastrophic failure of the built-in 825 gigabyte drive that is proprietary, or maybe they'll be able to sell you those separately, or maybe somebody like OWC or something will come out with a solution that you can swap those out. As soon as it's enabled, it will solve the storage issues that I foresee that most players and users will encounter, because a lot of these games nowadays take up hundreds of gigabytes of storage. Hopefully this gets enabled soon so I can try it out and add some NVMe storage to my PS5. Sony also introduced a custom audio processing chip with the PS5. This is dubbed the Temptus 3D Audio Tech. This is another proprietary inclusion by Sony, which essentially uses the Temptus engine to simulate audio in a directional format from different types of sources while you're playing these different types of games. I'm assuming Sony is planning to give developers the power to use the audio timing effects and other smart processing algorithms to ensure sound is delivered to players in an accurate and usable way. They're building on giving players a more immersive experience in the game's environment, and I'm really all for it. Let's talk about connection options. There's Wi-Fi 6 support, Bluetooth 5.1, and HDMI 2.1. So now players are going to be better connected to the gaming experience by having faster Wi-Fi, a smoother wireless experience using their accessories with the system, and support for monitors that can push 4K 120 Hz refresh rates. And all of that is all good stuff, especially when you're gaming. Lessening input lag in general and delays and stuff like that just make for a better overall experience, especially when gaming online with other individuals. The physical design of the console is a polarizing one, to say the least. I'm one of the folks that would prefer a much more boxy design like that of the Xbox Series X. But Sony pulled out all the stops with this one and went in the direction that is along the lines of setting their systems apart from one another. You know that you have a PS5 by looking at this Oreo or reverse Oreo. On the face of the console, there's a power and eject buttons, as well as a high-speed USB-C and USB-A ports right in the middle of the console. On the back of it, you get two more high-speed USB-A ports, a 1 gigabit LAN port, one HDMI 2.1 port, and a power input. One thing that you're going to notice is there's no more digital optical out. Kind of a bummer for those of you out there that use that. I mean, if you got HDMI 2.1, I think that solves that missing element of the PS5. Hopefully they try to come out with a, PS5 Pro that will include that port, because I know a lot of you out there need it. I've seen a lot of complaints surrounding it, especially when connecting this thing to like surround sound systems. It's a heavy system, coming in at around 10 pounds. I read that the digital edition's around 8.5 pounds, or 4.5 and 3.9 kilograms respectively. That's pretty heavy. It's gigantic in comparison to the PS4 Pro, and is something that will definitely stand out on your entertainment system if you have it set out in a similar fashion as which you have your PS4 or your PS4 Pro. Let's be real, it looks fine, but it's just not as functional as I think it could be. Honestly, it looks fine, but it's just not as functional as I think it could be. Personally, I don't think a console should require a stand, which Sony includes with the PS5 as an out of the box. As out of the box, you may be tempted to just stand it up vertically, but Sony advises against this in their documentation. Because it can vibrate and whatnot and slide off a table if it's high up, and that's just something you don't want to have happen. Additionally, when you set this beast horizontally, it needs to stand as well. I'm not a fan of this for two reasons. The first, the stand doesn't secure to the console in a horizontal orientation as it does in a vertical orientation. It kind of just hooks in place on the back with this flimsy type of way. When you pick the console up, it kind of dangles in place. If you're not careful with it, I foresee that some users breaking the hook on the stand or it just coming off completely. And that's just not a good look for Sony. I mean, it should be able to secure to the system in some way, shape, or form. Maybe it's some sort of ploy on, having orders on stands increase or something like that. I don't know. The second reason is that you shouldn't need a stand to put any console in a horizontal orientation ever. Moving on to the controller, the newly introduced redesigned DualSense controller is a really nice and needed update in my opinion. I've been playing with the Scuff Impact controllers for a little over a year now, and the form factor follows that design language pretty closely. The chunkiness of the controller feels great in my hands, and I cannot wait until the race for custom controller options picks up and it just expands options to consumers out there. I wish Sony would just give players a pro option with the controller, having back paddles or buttons on the back of their controller like Microsoft does with their pro controllers, options out there, but I guess they're just depending on licensing the DualSense controller to third-party companies to maximize profitability of the console. Either way, I can't go full-time to the DualSense just yet, as I've grown accustomed to having 4 back paddles. Playing without them makes me feel kind of naked. For now, I'm just gonna stick to using my Scuff Impacts and keep playing PS4 games on the PS5 until other options are available. As far as battery on the DualSense, it packs a 1560 milliamp hour battery, which makes it roughly 50% more than what you'll find on the DualShock 4. It charges via USB-C, which I'm really happy about, and the charge time is kind of quicker. It may be a placebo effect. I didn't do any official timing of it, but the DualSense charged way faster than my DualShocks. The DualSense has a microphone built in, which you can mute if you need to, and I just kind of leave that on mute. It contains haptic feedback motors, which is a far departure from the weighted motors found in the DualShock 4, and adaptive triggers. I like the adaptive triggers, but they're not as nice as having digital tap triggers in my opinion, especially for first-person shooters. I really like the haptic motors in the DualSense. It's just a much more engaging experience, and you can't explain it on video without having held the DualSense in hand and played a game that takes advantage of, walking around in different environments and taking different actions while you're playing the game. It really brings you into the game. There's a ton more tech included in the DualSense that I haven't really been able to test, as there's not many games that are available to us right now at launch. The technology available though leaves a ton of headroom to grow into as we progress into games for PlayStation 5, and it's something I'm excited for as time goes on. Let's briefly talk about the menu system and the user interface, as this will most certainly evolve and get better as the system begins to age and Sony has given more time to develop it. It's very reminiscent of the PS4, but it takes some time getting used to. Control Center is a new way to easily access all sorts of stuff, from the settings to friends to notifications and accessibility options, all types of stuff. I'm not quite sure what to think of this just yet. I like it sometimes, but I find it difficult to find things other times. If anything, I'd like Control Center to be bigger and more prominent while using the menu. As we move to close this video out, and since I've had this system for such a short time, I now need to get to testing it, which is the fun part, and preparing my full review. If you're interested in that at all, you can subscribe and then you'll get notified when that goes live or when that happens. I simply just haven't had enough time with the PS5, nor have I had the opportunity to test games for it, as they're kind of slim pickings at launch and there's just not very many available. I also want to wait for custom controller makers to bring some viable DualSense Pro controllers to market so I can test those and maybe make some videos on those as well. I really need a DualSense with back buttons, 4 of them too, remappable as well. If you have any recommendations on what you'd like to see, or if you know a custom controller maker that I haven't, that I'm not aware of, that's outside of Scuff or Battle Beaver or AIM controllers, drop me a comment and I'll see if I can get my hands on those controllers and kind of bring some videos to you, kind of trick it out, bring that video to you and whatnot. Before I close, I have nothing to disclose. I bought this thing with my own cold hard cash through the support of you guys purchasing through my affiliate links linked in the description. If you're in the market for purchasing, lenses or games or any kind of electronics, if you shop through my affiliate links, that'd be highly appreciated. It allows me to continue to make content like this for you on this channel. Well, that about does it for me in this one. If you enjoyed this video, please feel free to give me a thumbs up. If you didn't, you know what to do. Thank you for taking the time to watch. I'm Tomas, and I'll catch you in the next one.